Journey across the globe, from Scotland to China, with world's greatest train ride videos. Experience the breathtaking thrill and adventure of authentic train travel as you follow the tracks to unique history, fascinating people, and breathtaking scenery. All aboard!
And 250 million people who proudly call America their home. And linking the nation are thousands of miles of silver rails. Join me, Doug Jones, as we ride from New York to Los Angeles on board 3 of America's greatest passenger trains, the Broadway Limited, the California Zephyr, and the Desert Wind, as we track the American dream. In 1869, the Union Pacific completed the first transcontinental tracks linking the East Coast with San Francisco to the west. In the years that followed, a total of 7 different routes would be built from coast to coast by railroads such as the Denver and Rio Grande, the Great Northern, and the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe. By the early 20th century, America was covered by railroads that ran to virtually every spot in the land. Majestic steam locomotives pulled trains across America filled with pioneers, entrepreneurs, adventurers, and even wide-eyed tourists out to discover the West. By the 1920s, American passenger trains had become fast, luxurious, and competitive. They had romantic names: the 20th Century Limited, the City of St. Louis, the Empire Builder. Each sought to create an image of the routes they took across the land. And then, in the late 1930s, the Budd Company of Philadelphia developed and patented the shot weld system, making stainless steel railroad cars possible, and the silver streamliners were born. Many railroads converted their luxury trains to stainless steel, and from the end of the Second World War through the 1950s, a short 15-year period of time, the streamliner passenger train reigned supreme. It was not the 1920s and 30s, but rather the late 1940s and the 1950s that were the heyday of passenger trains. During this period, such famous trains as the California Zephyr, the Super Chief, and the Canadian were born. The introduction of the jet plane caused their premature demise, and by the 1960s, all were losing money. In 1974, recognizing that private railroads could no longer afford to operate their passenger trains, Amtrak was born. Poorly funded and saddled with equipment that had not been maintained, Amtrak struggled against almost insurmountable odds. But America's love of trains gave Amtrak life, and today these great trains of the past still roll along the scenic routes packed with travelers exploring America in the manner of a bygone day. Today, Amtrak continues to provide extensive coast-to-coast service. Our ride will begin in New York on the legendary Broadway Limited as we travel to Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and on to Chicago. In Chicago, we'll change trains at Union Station, boarding the fabled California Zephyr, heading to Omaha, Denver, through the Rockies, and on to Salt Lake. At Salt Lake City, we'll leave the Zephyr, which continues to Oakland, and board the Desert Wind, heading to Las Vegas and on to L.A. Our transcontinental train ride will begin in New York City, terminus for all of the great Eastern trains and the nation's largest city. New York City is surrounded by water. 4 of the 5 boroughs are on islands. Tunnels under the Hudson River were built in the early part of the century to allow passenger trains to run directly into Pennsylvania Station. Prior to the building of the tunnels, the trains unloaded in New Jersey, and passengers took ferry boats across the Hudson River and into town. Today, New York is still America's most exciting and vibrant city. Fifth Avenue is one of the busiest and most prestigious shopping streets of the world. Tens of thousands of people stroll the avenue each day as they shop in the exclusive boutiques and world-famous department stores. Names like Tiffany's, Saks, Bergdorf's, and Gucci offer travelers from around the world shopping sprees on New York's most famous street. In the heart of Manhattan stands Rockefeller Center and Radio City Music Hall, the nation's showplace. Rockefeller Center was built in the height of the Depression, a bold statement of confidence in the city by John D. Rockefeller, Jr. New Yorkers rarely own cars. 17,000 taxi cabs cruise the streets of New York 24 hours a day. But for sheer speed, distance, and economy, the subways are the best way of getting around. Nearly 300 miles of underground track carry trains around the clock beneath the streets of New York, hauling millions of people each day. For relaxation, New Yorkers often turn to Central Park. 840 acres in the heart of the city provide greenery, trees, lakes, and miles of biking and skating paths. The park was designed by Frederick Law Olmsted in 1856, and in spite of its undeserved negative reputation outside of New York, it remains the city's most popular recreational area. But many would claim New York is at its best after dark. Times Square is the crossroads of the world. This is the Great White Way. Here in the blocks off of Broadway are 40 different theaters offering an array of theatrical fare. Plays, dramas, musicals, reviews, entertainment to please anyone's theatrical taste. But we're here to board the train. Cross-country train travel begins in New York at Pennsylvania Station. Located on 7th Avenue between 31st and 33rd Street in Manhattan, the new Pennsylvania Station replaces one of New York's greatest landmarks. While the old Penn Station no longer exists, the new station serves its purposes well. It is the origination point for all of the westbound cross-country trains, including our train today, the fabled Broadway Limited. Travelers purchase tickets from Amtrak agents who arrange the reserved coach seats as well as the overnight sleeping car accommodations for people traveling through to Chicago. Coach seats are usually easy to book at the last minute, but sleeping accommodations tend to be booked up well in advance, particularly during the peak summer months. Shortly before 12:45, the announcement is made that the Broadway Limited is boarding on track 16. Travelers descend the escalators into the depths of Pennsylvania Station, while service personnel direct them to the coaches and sleepers waiting on the tracks. At 12:45, the conductor shouts, "All aboard!" The locomotive powers up, and the Broadway Limited slowly rolls out of New York's Pennsylvania Station as it begins another westward journey to the Windy City, carrying on a tradition that dates back to 1912. We travel through a tunnel under the Hudson River, emerging a few minutes later in the Meadowlands. From this point, the Broadway Limited will head south through New Jersey to Philadelphia, stopping in Newark and Trenton along the way. Travelers sit back and relax in the coaches as we speed through the New Jersey countryside. There is a wonderful sense of leisure riding a train. The panorama of America, small towns, farms, and industry pass by quickly, giving you a chance to see the nation from a moving picture window. In the lounge car, a steward serves drinks and light meals throughout the trip. The diner will open at Newark for lunch and Harrisburg for dinner. In the locomotive, our engineer, Donald Friel, is watching ahead intently as he drives the train. From New York City to Washington, the track is electrified and the Broadway will be pulled by a General Motors electric locomotive. The cab is occupied only by the engineer. His attention to the tracks ahead is paramount to the safety of the train. We are traveling on Amtrak's dedicated Northeast Corridor. The inside tracks are used only by passenger trains, and the Broadway Limited will run at a steady 90 miles an hour. Our first stop will be Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love. Located on the Delaware River, Philadelphia is the birthplace of the nation, and we'll be stopping here for a day to explore some of our most important national sites. The Broadway Limited arrives in Philadelphia at 30th Street Station, a grand rail terminal recently restored by Amtrak to its original state. We'll stay overnight in Philadelphia and catch the westbound Broadway Limited tomorrow. At the station, we'll grab a cab and head to our hotel before setting out to see the town. Philadelphia is one of America's great cities. It has a spectacular skyline. The Schuylkill River flanks the city to the west, the Delaware River to the east. Broad Street is Philadelphia's main stem. Standing in the middle of Broad Street is Philadelphia's City Hall. This Victorian Beaux Arts structure is best known for the enormous 37-foot-high bronze statue of William Penn, which stands atop the building and faces northeast towards New York. Philadelphia is one of America's oldest cities. In the heart of Society Hill are elegant federal townhouses built in the late 18th century during Philadelphia's reign as the nation's premier city. The houses were home to the city's most influential residents. Almost all of the signers of the Declaration of Independence lived in these streets surrounding Independence Hall. Horse carriages continue to operate in the district today, taking visitors through the narrow streets around Independence Square. This statue of George Washington stands in front of Philadelphia's most prominent landmark, Independence Hall. Erected in 1732 as the State House of the colony of Pennsylvania, Independence Hall was where the nation was born. On May the 10th of 1775, the Second Continental Congress convened. The following month, George Washington accepted appointment as the General of the Continental Army. And in the Assembly Hall, a Virginia delegate, Richard Henry Lee, offered a resolution declaring that these united colonies are, and of right ought to be, free and independent states. On July the 4th, 1776, the Declaration of Independence was signed. The Liberty Bell, Philadelphia's best-known symbol, is housed in front of Independence Hall. For more than 200 years, it hung in the bell tower of Independence Hall. It was moved to this enclosure during the bicentennial, so visitors could get a close look at one of America's most cherished symbols. It was cast in England in 1751 and cracked during testing. It was repaired but cracked again in 1846 and was forever silenced. National Parks rangers tell the story of the bell while visitors get a chance to see the famous flaw in one of America's most important icons. Philadelphia was the birthplace of America and an appropriate first stop on our journey across the land. From Philadelphia, we continue west on the Broadway Limited, reboarding the train at 30th Street Station. The arrival and departure board announces today's westbound train. This rail terminal was built by the Pennsylvania Railroad in the late 1920s and completely restored by Amtrak a few years ago. Ticket agents answer questions and direct travelers to the appropriate track. Shortly before 2:57 p.m., westbound passengers will board the train. Here at Philadelphia, the electric locomotive will be removed and replaced with two General Motors F40 diesel electrics. The 3,000 horsepower locomotives will pull the Broadway Limited west from Philadelphia all the way to Chicago on the Great Lakes. The Broadway Limited was the premier luxury train of the Pennsylvania Railroad. Inaugurated in 1912, it ran in stiff competition with the 20th Century Limited operated by the New York Central. The name Broadway Limited is assumed to refer to the fabled thoroughfare of New York and the Great White Way, but in fact it has nothing to do with New York at all. The name refers to the Pennsylvania Railroad's wide four-track route that ran from New York to Pittsburgh. The four-track width was known throughout the railroad world as the Broadway, hence the name of this legendary train. From Philadelphia, we move west through the Pennsylvania Dutch country toward our next stop, the town of Lancaster, PA. Lancaster is the center of the colorful Pennsylvania Dutch country. About 70 miles west of Philadelphia, it is the center of Lancaster County and one of Pennsylvania's most popular travel destinations. Lancaster was the capital of Pennsylvania between 1799 and 1812. It was even the capital of the United States for a day in 1777 when Congress moved out of Philadelphia in an attempt to escape the British. Today, Lancaster is a sleepy town supporting the rich farmlands around its perimeter and the throngs of tourists that flock here each year. The travelers come not only to enjoy the town and its attractions, but they come mainly to see the Amish and their way of life that continues to flourish here unchanged in over 150 years. Just outside of Lancaster, primarily to the east, are miles of small farms, each prim and proper with freshly painted barns and a postcard-like appearance. Roughly 16,000 Amish people live in the region. Nearly all are engaged in agriculture. Their roots and religious traditions date back to 16th century Germany. They are not Dutch. The term Pennsylvania Dutch is a mispronunciation of the word Deutsch, which means German. They continue to speak German, and their farms are small because their traditions do not allow use of modern machinery, hence the work is slow. One of the ironies of their lives is that they have turned their backs on modern life, and in doing so have attracted the attention of the world and become a modern-day curiosity. Their way of life does not allow automobiles. Because of this, horse-drawn buggies are used to move people between the farms, and they share the roads with cars and trucks and buses, filled with people amazed that this way of life can continue without compromise in our modern age. The Lancaster region boasts the oldest short-line railroad in America, the Strasburg Line. This rail line is only 9 miles long and runs between Strasburg and Paradise, Pennsylvania. The cars are wooden coaches dating from the turn of the century, and the open platform car on the rear of the train was used in the making of the film version of the Broadway hit Hello, Dolly. The track was laid in 1832, and the line carried milk, mail, and coal. The steam locomotive is original to the line and has been completely restored. And the Strasburg Railroad will give you a chance to see what rail travel was like in America 100 years ago. Our westward journey to Chicago on the Broadway Limited will continue at Lancaster Station, another impressive terminal built by the Pennsylvania Railroad. The train arrives from Philadelphia and the waiting passengers board. The conductor and his assistant check the platform to make sure that it is clear. A quick all aboard is called, and the Broadway Limited pulls out on time at 4:15 p.m., heading west toward the Allegheny Mountain Range. From Lancaster, we head west and soon begin to follow the Susquehanna River. At Harrisburg, the state capital, we'll stop momentarily before continuing northwest. And about 10 miles out of Harrisburg, the train will cross the Susquehanna and continue following the river on the western bank. As we pass through central Pennsylvania, the scenery becomes beautiful, rural, and lightly populated. We pass farms and small towns. An occasional car waits at a grade crossing, and the quiet solitude of train travel, broken only by the low, distant wail of the locomotive whistle, settles on you with a rhythmic beat, punctuated by the chatter of the rails. While the Allegheny Mountains of the East seem docile compared with the majestic Rockies that lie nearly 2,000 miles to the west, they were an engineering nightmare for the track-laying teams of the day. The Pennsylvania Railroad bored through the mountains by building the Gallitzin tunnels west of Altoona, crossing the eastern Continental Divide. But before the ridge could be crested, the tracks had to be laid around the Horseshoe Curve. The curve was completed in 1854. It was a marvel of engineering. 1,400 feet across and a full mile around, the curve was built using only picks, shovels, horses, and drags. The passage was considered so important that it was twice placed under 24-hour military guard. First during the Civil War and again during World War I. Today, the Broadway Limited still rounds Horseshoe Curve, and from the windows you can survey the panorama of the valley below as we roll on toward the eastern Continental Divide. The dining car opens at sundown, and we'll make our way forward to enjoy dinner in the diner while the Pennsylvania mountains roll by. Our dining car steward, John Long, will seat us and offer his suggestions for our evening meal. Dining on board a train is one of the great travel experiences of life. In the galley of the train, the chief chef, William James, will work with his assistant, Helena Pappas, and together the two of them will turn out over 100 meals. The fare is pretty basic. Steak and chicken are the most commonly ordered items. The food is good, tasty, well prepared, and quite serviceable for a train. There is something magical about dining on a train. The swaying cars, the flowers on the table, and conversations with strangers brought together by a common love of trains. After dinner, passengers return to the sleepers as we head west toward our next stop, Steeltown, Pittsburgh, PA. Pittsburgh lies in western Pennsylvania at the junction of three rivers. This is Pennsylvania's Renaissance City. The Broadway Limited arrives in Pittsburgh at 10:42 p.m. The silver cars reflect the glowing lights of the old Pennsylvania Station downtown. Pittsburgh rises from a point of land known as the Golden Triangle. It is at the junction of three rivers, the Ohio, the Allegheny, and the Monongahela. Known for years as a city of steel mills and coal smoke, Pittsburgh has totally reinvented itself. As a result of foreign imports, most of the mills have closed, and Pittsburgh has become a high-tech town. It is a city of business, information, data collection, and finance. Hard hats have been exchanged for computer screens, and Pittsburgh has emerged as one of America's most successful cities. Pittsburgh is a historic community with many wonderful attractions. The Duquesne Incline is one of two such inclines that scale the tall cliffs of Pittsburgh's south side. They moved people almost straight up the hill to Mount Washington, saving them climbs that would be exhausting. This incline was built in 1877 and has operated continuously ever since. No other attraction in Pittsburgh offers such an expansive view. Pittsburgh offers an unusual collection of museums, including the National Aviary. This aviary on Pittsburgh's north side is the only aviary of North America which operates independently of a zoo. Of the 9,000 species of birds in the world, the National Aviary is home to 250, set in their natural habitats. Here you enter their world as opposed to the other way around. The collection includes birds of the desert, marshes, and tropical jungles. Climates are altered to create environments suitable for each of the different species. East of Pittsburgh is the District of Oakland. This is Pittsburgh's center of culture and education. The Cathedral of Learning is a Gothic-style skyscraper, the landmark symbol of the University of Pittsburgh. Pitt, as it is commonly known, is one of the premier centers of education in America. Across Forbes Avenue, opposite the Cathedral of Learning, you'll find Pittsburgh's star attraction, the Carnegie Institute. This stone block building is home to one of the great and most eclectic museums of the world. This museum has a collection that ranges from dinosaurs to diamonds. It was built and endowed by Andrew Carnegie, the Pittsburgh steel magnate. It is a natural history museum filled with dioramas. It is a science museum housed in a separate structure, and it is an art museum with a collection that ranges from ancient pieces of the past to the paintings of today. It has an impressive library for research, an acoustically renowned music hall, and a collection of art which will please connoisseurs of any style. Much of the collection is modern, and the Carnegie Institute proudly displays its Andy Warhol pieces. Andy Warhol is one of Pittsburgh's native sons. His work is respected here, and many of his pieces are housed in a museum dedicated exclusively to his work. Pittsburgh is an important American city, and one of the stops on the Broadway Limited as it makes its way west to Chicago. Once the train leaves Pittsburgh, it's time for bed. Charles Johnson, our bedroom steward, will make up our sleeper, changing it from a daytime compartment with a comfortable bench sofa to a nighttime bedroom with upper and lower berths. This process of changing the compartment from a sitting car to a sleeping car and then back to a sitting car goes on twice a day, every day the train is rolling along. Every sleeper has a private commode and sink, though no shower. The Broadway Limited uses what are known as heritage cars that are only 1 story in height, low enough to clear the bridges and tunnels of the East. You'll find that when we board the California Zephyr in Chicago, we'll be traveling in 2-story Superliner cars, which are newer and have showers in the deluxe private compartments. The following morning, as the sun rises, we're speeding west over the flatlands of northern Indiana. Breakfast is served in the dining car. It's a bit rushed because we're due to arrive at our destination, Chicago Union Station, at 8:14 a.m. The Broadway Limited is rolling along at a steady 80 miles an hour on its final leg. We're completing a 915-mile journey between New York and Chicago on one of the most historic railway routes of the world. Chicago, Illinois, the Windy City, stands proudly on the shores of Lake Michigan. It is the western terminus of the Broadway Limited. At Union Station in Chicago, everyone disembarks. We leave the train and head to our hotel, then set out to explore what Carl Sandburg described as the city of big shoulders. Chicago is the capital of the Midwest, a city of 3 million people who live on Lake Michigan. The winters are fierce, the summer is hot, but Chicagoans will tell you that despite the notorious weather, this is the greatest city in the world. Whether or not this is true, Chicago is a marvel of man's ingenuity. The Wrigley Building on Michigan Avenue was built in the 1920s, 30 years after Louis Sullivan and Daniel Burnham developed the steel frame structure, and in doing so invented the skyscraper as we know it today. Michigan Avenue's magnificent mile is home to the finest shops and stores of the Midwest. This is the heart of Chicago's near North Side. On the corner of Michigan Avenue and Chicago streets is the Water Tower, a limestone obelisk that was part of the complex hydraulic system used to pump water from Lake Michigan into the city's water mains. It is the only structure on the North Side to have survived the Great Fire of 1871. The Field Museum is one of Chicago's many fine museums, built and funded by Marshall Field of the department store mogul as a gift to the citizens of the city on the lake. The Chicago Art Institute on Michigan Avenue is arguably one of the finest art museums of the world, ranking with the Metropolitan Museum of New York. It is best known for its medieval and Renaissance works, as well as its Impressionist and Post-Impressionist art. While the skyscraper was invented in Chicago, for a half a century New York possessed the world's tallest buildings. Then in 1974, the Sears Tower opened, and once again Chicago held the honor of the tallest building on Earth. At 1,500 feet and 110 stories in height, it tops New York's World Trade Center by 150 feet. Chicago's best-known form of public transportation is the L. The elevated trains of Chicago run from the north, northwest, and south, converging into a large round hub in the center of the city. This elevated loop defines Chicago's downtown, and the term going down to the loop is still used by Chicagoans to mean that they are traveling downtown. State Street, that great street, is known to the world from the song Chicago. State Street runs through the heart of the loop, passing the city's best-known department stores. This famous clock on the corner of State and Randolph marks the entrance to Chicago's premier department store, Marshall Field's. Taking up an entire city block, this is Chicago's best-known store. Also on State Street in the shadow of the L, and like Marshall Field's taking up an entire city block, stands Chicago's most famous hotel, the Palmer House. Built over 100 years ago by Potter Palmer, this landmark of the Loop has some of the most ornate and elegant public spaces of the city. For the better part of a century, meeting friends in the lobby of the Palmer House has been a great Chicago tradition. Chicago is also a city of bridges. Drawbridges cross the Chicago River at every street and are raised and lowered throughout the day to accommodate traffic on the river. In a feat of engineering that shows man at his most arrogant best, city planners managed in 1880, through the installation of a lock and some clever hydraulics, to reverse the flow of the Chicago River. Instead of flowing into Lake Michigan, it now flows towards the Mississippi River through central Illinois. The bridge carries traffic and people. Commuters by the thousands cross the river each day, passing between Union Station and the towering office buildings of the Loop. And of all of the buildings in the Loop, perhaps none is more important to the economy of the Midwest and the nation than this Art Deco tower, the Chicago Board of Trade. This is Chicago's equivalent to the New York Stock Exchange. Here on weekdays between 9 a.m. and 2 p.m., the floor of the Board of Trade is open for business. And while the New York Stock Exchange may seem chaotic at times, it is perfectly peaceful compared to the continuous riot that goes on here each day. These traders are buying and selling commodities, carloads of wheat, corn, soybeans, and molasses. They buy and sell existing commodities and futures on grain that has not only not been harvested yet, it hasn't even been planted. The level of noise is so deafening and the stakes so high that the traders use complex hand signals to coordinate their trades. If the palm is facing the trader, he or she is buying. If the palm is facing out, they are selling. Additionally, the jackets the traders wear are of colors, patterns, and trims that are specific to each individual firm. The Chicago Board of Trade is the single most influential financial institution of this city. We traveled from New York to Chicago on the Broadway Limited. After seeing Chicago, we'll be boarding the California Zephyr as we travel west to Salt Lake. These are the 14th Street yards. On the near-south side of Chicago, Amtrak manages the largest passenger train yards of America. In these yards, the consists of all of the great cross-country trains are formed. The consist is the term for the configuration of locomotives, mail, and baggage cars, as well as the diners, coaches, lounges, and sleepers that will be joined together to form each specific long-distance train. Our journey west on the California Zephyr will begin at Union Station. Built in 1926 on South Canal Street, Union Station is everything a great rail terminal should be. This is one of the busiest rail stations of America. Over 40 different long-haul trains, as well as 160 commuter trains, arrive and depart each day. Tens of thousands of people use this station every day. Video monitors announce the arrival and departure of all trains, and passengers move through the warren of spaces as they seek out the departure tracks for the Zephyr today. The California Zephyr is scheduled to depart at 3:05 p.m. from track 26, and the passengers assemble at 2:45 for the general boarding of the train. The conductor directs passengers down the platform, pointing them in the general direction of their individual coaches and sleepers. There is a sense of excitement here that only a great train can provide. A feeling that something exciting is about to begin. Two powerful locomotives and 17 stainless steel cars stand tall on the dimly lit platform, beckoning us to board for a great adventure that only a grand cross-country train can provide. At 3:05, the engineer climbs into the cab of the front locomotive, and the conductor walks the platform one last time to ensure that all passengers and crew are on board. A final "all aboard" is shouted down the empty platform. The whistle blows and the locomotive powers up, and the California Zephyr is underway on a journey west to the coast of California, carrying travelers across America as we set out to discover the West on board this famous train. The Zephyr emerges from under Union Station, heading south then west as the skyline of Chicago retreats. Our train is nearly 2,500 feet long, consisting of two F-40 locomotives, 4 mail cars, 2 baggage cars, 2 diners, a lounge car, 8 coaches, and 4 sleepers. 21 cars and 2 locomotives make the California Zephyr one of the longest trains in the world. And the silver coaches that stretch for nearly a half a mile will be an impressive sight once the train is up to speed at 80 miles an hour, rolling out over the plains. Once out of Chicago, the train picks up speed, and the droning chatter of the tracks and the gentle sway atop the 2-story cars settles into a rhythm that will be with us all the way across America. The conductor is the captain of the train. People often incorrectly assume that the engineer is the man in charge, but the engineer, along with the onboard staff, will ultimately answer to the conductor, who has the final say in all decisions regarding the train. The conductor will, however, not ride with us to the coast. The conductor and engineer will change every 4 to 8 hours throughout the trip. The rest of the staff, dining car personnel, sleeping car attendants, and the onboard service managers will be with us the whole way. The 3.5 hours out of Chicago, 200 miles to the west, the California Zephyr will cross the Mississippi River at Burlington, Iowa, passing into the second of the 6 states the Zephyr will cross. From the Mississippi, we roll west, passing the lush farms of Iowa, en route to our next destination and our next state, Omaha, Nebraska. Omaha lies near the geographical center of the continental United States. It was built on the banks of the Missouri River, and like Kansas City to the south, it is a center of commerce for the plains. The Zephyr arrives in Omaha at midnight. Omaha lies on the eastern edge of Nebraska. It abuts the Missouri River and stands opposite Council Bluffs, Iowa. Omaha is a city of about 400,000 people, typically Midwestern and a center of the grain and livestock trade. Omaha, like Kansas City, is known for beef. The Omaha stockyards are among the last large stockyards of the Midwest. Most major stockyard operations, like Chicago and Kansas City, have either closed or are a shadow of what they used to be. The trend in stockyard operations is towards decentralization, with facilities closer to the farms. The Omaha stockyards are among the last large stockyards of the nation, and Omaha steaks are a benchmark of quality in restaurants throughout the world. But Nebraska and the plains are best known as the breadbasket of the nation. Here the phrase, amber waves of grain, becomes real and powerful. From Texas north to Saskatchewan, the Great Plains of North America grow the most abundant wheat harvest of the world. It was the early Western settlers who recognized that this flat, featureless land possessed the richest soil on earth. Even though Russia produces more grain, American farmers still, year after year, not only feed our nation, but export wheat to Russia and almost every other country of the world. This is a result of efficiency, hard work, and American know-how that has maximized the grain harvests of the Midwest. These scenes in early June throughout Nebraska and Kansas are distinctly American. Modern, efficient combines work quickly to harvest the winter wheat, which was planted in the fall, germinated in the winter, sprouting and growing through spring, reaching full maturity in June. American farmers operate in a free market, and the scenes we saw earlier on the floor of the Chicago Board of Trade are a result of activities which begin here. American farmers follow the commodities prices and commit to sell these crops at specific prices long before the harvest begins. By doing so, they ensure the value of their harvest at a price that will meet their profit needs, and this in turn ensures the American family that there will be bread on the table at a price they can afford. Omaha is at the heart of the American Midwest, almost exactly the center of the nation, and the halfway point on our railroad journey across the land. Here at Omaha, we reboard the California Zephyr. We'll be leaving at midnight, heading west into the black, inky skies. We pass through Nebraska in the middle of the night, with only the lonely wail of a train whistle echoing from nearly a half a mile away. The following morning, the California Zephyr is rolling along at a steady 80 miles an hour out over eastern Colorado. Our steward has brought us coffee and the morning paper. Different papers are brought on board each day. Local papers are usually available in addition to USA Today. The scenery we are passing through is farmland and cattle country. This is the end of the Great Plains. What lies ahead are the Rockies and the majestic West. Our first major stop today will be Denver, Colorado, the mile-high city, and the last major city before the Rocky Mountain Range. We arrive at 8:14 a.m. at Union Station. At Denver, the Zephyr will back in. The conductor will monitor the braking of the train from the last car. We'll be leaving the train at Union Station, an impressive grand terminal in Denver's lower downtown, built by the Denver and Rio Grande Western Railroad. Denver is one of the premier cities of the West. At 1 mile above sea level, it is the highest major city of the United States. It lies nestled at the base of the Front Range of the Rockies, with towering mountains forming a snow-capped background for the contemporary skyline that rises from the banks of the South Platte River. Denver has been an important city since the late 19th century. The state capitol was built in 1894. The dome reflects the state's mining heritage. It is covered with 24-karat gold leaf, and the 13th step on the stairs leading to the Capitol is exactly 1 mile above sea level. The new Denver International Airport is a mark of the city's growth. Although steeped in controversy, DIA is proving to be an efficient new transportation hub. Denver is trying to tackle its traffic problems with public transportation. A new light rail system operates through the downtown. Larimer Square is a part of Lodo, lower downtown. This is the oldest part of the city, made up of warehouses and industrial lofts, many of which have been converted into stores, cafes, galleries, and clubs. This has become a favorite watering hole for Denver's professional set, and the cafes and bars are crowded during the lunch hour and after work. One of Denver's most historic buildings is the Brown Palace Hotel. Located at 17th and Broadway, it was constructed in 1892. This has always been the city's most fashionable address, and 100 years later, the Brown Palace remains Denver's most luxurious hotel. The interior boasts the first hotel atrium of the world. The ceiling of the atrium is of Tiffany-stained glass. The lobby walls are of Colorado marble, and the halls surrounding the atrium on the upper floors are decorated with elaborate ironwork. This is still a favorite place to meet friends, and tea in the lobby of the Brown Palace Hotel remains one of Denver's most popular traditions. Few other places in the city capture the feeling of what Denver must have been like as the newly rich tried to set a standard of refinement and taste in what was then the capital of the Wild West. And of the newly rich of the day, no name has endured longer than that of Molly Brown. Molly Brown was a rambunctious woman who discovered gold in central Colorado. Rolling in wealth, she built this Victorian confection east of downtown. Forever snubbed by polite society, she garnered worldwide attention as the unsinkable heroine of the Titanic. Denver is a city of commerce and history, and it is also a city which offers many different leisure activities. Elitch Gardens have been a part of Denver for generations. This amusement park was located north of town until 1995. In a bold move, the park was relocated into the center of Denver, on the flat land surrounding the South Platte River. The new park is more popular than ever. The rides are new but traditional, and the games of chance remind you of visiting an old-fashioned carnival midway. The park features several hair-raising roller coasters, Ferris wheels, merry-go-rounds, and tilt-a-whirl rides. It is new, high-tech, yet quaint and charming in a nostalgic way. From Denver, the California Zephyr will head west high into the Rocky Mountain Range. We return to Union Station to board the train. Today is the day we have all been waiting for, the ride through the Rockies to western Colorado, into Utah, and on to Salt Lake. Here at Denver, we'll change tracks. From Chicago to Denver, we traveled on the rails of the Burlington Northern. At Denver, the California Zephyr will continue west on the tracks of the historic Denver and Rio Grande. In the locomotive, our engineer Dave Zimmerman will drive the Zephyr through the heart of the Rockies. He will share his duties with an assistant, and both will ride through to Grand Junction, where a different crew will board the locomotive for the journey to Salt Lake. Pulling nearly a half a mile of steel up over the Continental Divide, our speed will be slow, ranging between 22 and 45 miles an hour. The engineer will monitor a panel of gauges to ensure full electrical output to the traction motors. The air brakes are the most important safety feature of the train, and the dead man's switch must be pressed by hand twice a minute to ensure that the engineer is alert. If it is not pressed every 30 seconds, the train will automatically come to a halt. Up ahead is our first tunnel between Denver and the Continental Divide. We will pass through 30 different tunnels scattered along 60 miles of winding track. Some of the tunnels are only a few hundred feet long, others extend the better part of a mile. This is one of the most scenic rail routes of the world. It skirts a sheer face of towering granite extending into the mountain peaks, reaching altitudes of 14,000 feet. These mountains were a remarkable challenge for the track-laying teams of the day. The original California Zephyr ran on this route between 1949 and 1970. It was named for the Greek god of the west wind. The train was unusual in that it was operated by 3 different railroads. The Burlington Northern operated the train from Chicago to Denver. The Denver and Rio Grande Western owned and operated the Zephyr from Denver to Salt Lake. And from Salt Lake City, the Western Pacific ran the train to Oakland and the coast. All 3 railroads operated the train in a joint venture. The only thing that would change between San Francisco and Chicago would be the locomotives. Each railroad had distinctive locomotives, and you always knew which tracks you were on by the color scheme and the style of the diesels on the head end of the train. As we approach the summit, the track bed is flanked by snow even in summer. We are at 9,200 feet and approaching the Moffat Tunnel. This is the second longest tunnel of North America. It was built between 1923 and 1928 by David Moffat. It is 6 miles long and takes nearly 10 minutes to pass through. The opening of the tunnel cut 5 hours off the trip, which had necessitated a climb to 11,600 feet up and around James Peak. In the tunnel, we crossed the Western Continental Divide. On the other side of the Moffat Tunnel, we passed the Winter Park Ski Resort, the town of Fraser, and the communities of Granby and Dutsero, as we enter the canyons that will cradle the train and the Colorado River for the next 283 miles. Outside the windows, you'll see wires in what look like modified telephone poles. These are slide detectors. If a rock slide occurs, the falling rocks will trigger the detector and signal the engineer to either stop the train or go slow. In the coaches and lounge cars, passengers peer out of the wide windows of the scenery. Others relax and read. Trains offer wonderful opportunities to travel in an unhurried, timeless way. In western Colorado, we enter Glenwood Canyon as we approach Glenwood Springs, an interesting old mountain resort reminiscent of a 19th century European spa. From Glenwood Springs, the route flattens out as we head west towards Grand Junction and the rugged mesa cliffs of Utah and the west. Here the scenery changes from towering snow-capped mountains to desolate rock formations and canyons, while the Colorado River continues to roll on, accompanying us west towards the sea. We left Chicago 24 hours ago, and we have come to the Zephyr's halfway point, Grand Junction, Colorado, on the western fringe of the state. Only 13 miles from the Utah line, Grand Junction is the beginning of the Desert West. Here at Grand Junction, the train stops for 20 minutes. We're going to leave the train, rent a car, and head west to begin exploring some of our national parks. Our first stop will be Arches National Park on the eastern edge of Utah. Of our many different national parks, none offers a more haunting experience than Arches. Standing on the high mesa of eastern Utah are a collection of sandstone fins and rocks that the elements, wind, sand, and time have carved into arches that span the western sky. Here in the heart of the American West is the largest collection of natural arches on Earth, over 1,500. The time passage involved in their creation is almost impossible to comprehend. It took 100 million years to carve these amazing sights of the West. The gateway to Arches National Park is Moab, Utah, and Moab is also a starting point for one of the West's greatest adventures, whitewater rafting on the Colorado River. The Colorado River offers more whitewater raft trips than any other river of the world. The trips can be gentle or wild depending on what part of the river you choose to run, and more to the point, the time of year that you opt to go. Cross-country travelers on the California Zephyr often stop in Grand Junction, Colorado, or Thompson, Utah, to take these journeys before resuming their ride on the train. Back at Grand Junction, we reboard the Zephyr after 2 days of sightseeing and rafting. Here, the train crew will change. A new engineer and conductor will take us on to Salt Lake, and the chief chef of the dining car will water his diner, so there is plenty of water in the tanks. The conductor shouts, "All aboard," everyone hurries back onto the train, and the Zephyr heads out over the expansive panoramic west. It's late in the afternoon, and the rocks of Utah take on a yellow glow as we head toward Salt Lake City toward the northwest. Between Grand Junction and Salt Lake, the dining car will serve dinner to the nearly 500 passengers on board the train. In the galley, 3 people prepare the meals: the chief chef, John Jensen, his assistant, Jess Lewis, and Carlos Colasandro, who acts as the dishwasher, keeping everything clean. Amtrak chefs have all attended classes at CIA, the Culinary Institute of America in Hyde Park, New York, and they are encouraged to add their own touches and flair to the basic menu offered each day. California Zephyr diners are 2 stories high. The galley is on the lower level and the seating area is above. Meals are sent between the galley to the seating area by an electric dumbwaiter. And if it breaks down, which it sometimes does, there is an awful lot of running up and down the stairs. Dining on board the Zephyr is a wonderful experience. Passengers share tables so everyone can be served, and after introductions are made, most people find their dining companions to be interesting, if for no other reason than the common interest everyone shares in trains. While we are enjoying our dinner, the sleeping car attendant will be making up the berths. The Zephyr offers 3 types of sleeping accommodations. The Zephyr Deluxe bedrooms, though expensive, are among the finest sleeping car accommodations in the world. Gail Owens, a veteran Amtrak employee based in Los Angeles, is our sleeping car attendant. When Amtrak was formed in 1974, it was saddled with a motley assortment of cars from over a dozen private railroads, many of them obsolete. Millions of dollars were spent on the design and production of a whole new fleet of cars for the western routes. The cars are 2 stories high, modeled on the sleek coaches of Santa Fe's historic El Capitan. The rolling stock of Amtrak's western routes today is excellent. The sleeping cars are among the best in the world, roomy and generous. The deluxe bedrooms have private showers and commodes, ample closets, and 2 large and comfortable berths. You really can't help but sleep comfortably in these rolling bedrooms riding on the rails. And as the sun sets, the Zephyr rolls on, heading northwest to the capital of Utah, the city of Salt Lake. Salt Lake City is one of the great communities of the West. Nestled in a cradle of the Wasatch Mountain Range, the city is spectacular and the setting ideal. The California Zephyr arrives in Salt Lake City at midnight. The San Francisco-bound passengers will usually sleep through the stop, but we're getting off to explore the town. Salt Lake City has one of the most beautiful settings of any city in the world. On July the 24th of 1847, a small band of Mormons, led by Brigham Young, arrived in the valley of the Great Salt Lake. Casting his gaze over the arid land, Young said to his followers, "This is the right place," and the course of Utah was forever changed. The 6 spires of the Mormon temple soar into the sky above the center of town. They stand as a monument to the hard work and vision these Mormon pioneers had. The temple took 40 years to the day to complete. Joseph Smith was the prophet who received the tablets inscribed with the Book of Mormon. He died on the long trek west, but Brigham Young continued on, leading the pioneers to Utah and fulfilling Joseph Smith's vision of a new society established in a new Zion of the West. The temple is open only to those of the Mormon faith. The adjacent tabernacle, home to the Mormon Tabernacle Choir, is open to all who come to Temple Square. Today, 70% of the population of Utah is Mormon, and Temple Square in Salt Lake City is the largest tourist attraction of the state. 5 million people come here each year to hear from missionaries the story of the pioneers, the Mormon Church, its history, and present-day mission. The Beehive House was Brigham Young's home. Topped by a replica of a beehive to symbolize industriousness, it was constructed in 1854. These pioneers came to escape religious intolerance. They established here what was to be their promised land. Within 2 decades, they were joined by thousands of converts who came to participate in one of the most successful social experiments ever conducted. Next door to the Beehive House is the Lion House. It was built to house Brigham Young's 27 wives and 56 children. Polygamy was a prominent feature of Mormon life until 1890, when it was abolished primarily to secure Utah's statehood and its acceptance by the American Congress. One of the prominent features of Salt Lake City is the wide streets that radiate off of Temple Square. Main Street runs north and south and passes the ZCMI store. The Zion Cooperative Mercantile Institution was established in 1868 and is still Utah's premier department store. The streets are crowded with people, many of whom work in the world headquarters of the LDS Church. Others are engaged in high-tech industries and financial businesses. Salt Lake has a population of 750,000 and is an important economic center of the West. Salt Lake is also the capital of the state, and the Capitol building stands above the town. It was constructed in 1912 after the state stumbled upon $800,000 in inheritance taxes owed by the estate of Edward Harriman, the president of the Union Pacific Railroad. It is one of the best examples of Renaissance Revival architecture in the country. The region surrounding Salt Lake City is mountainous and breathtakingly beautiful. The Wasatch Mountains rise to elevations of 11,000 feet and possess some of the premier ski resorts of the West. Sundance, Park City, Snowbird are all located high in this impressive mountain range. Bridal Falls is one of the sights visitors generally see. A complex Indian legend tells the story of the falls. And running from Provo Canyon into the Heber Valley is the historic Heber Valley Railroad. This short line was laid in 1899 to move cattle and farm products out of the Heber Valley into Provo. The train still operates using the original steam locomotive. The cars have been restored, and if you are a steam train enthusiast, this is a ride you'll want to take. The journey is short, but it still takes almost 2 hours because this train is slow. So slow, it was always known as the Heber Creeper. If you get bored riding, you can hop out and jog alongside and almost always outrun the train. The Heber Creeper is one of the West's most beloved steam trains, very different from the Amtrak streamliners that have been taking us west. But no visit to Salt Lake City would be complete without a visit to the namesake attraction of the region, the Great Salt Lake. Located 17 miles west of downtown, this massive lake has the second highest salinity of any body of water in the world, next only to the Dead Sea. It is 73 miles long. It is marshy, sticky, warm, and incredibly salty because there is no outlet. All of the minerals and salts that feed into the lake from mountain streams are concentrated in what is essentially an enormous evaporating pond. The Great Salt Lake is one of the West's most unusual natural features. Salt Lake City is an impressive place and one of the main stops on the railroad routes of the West. At Salt Lake, the California Zephyr continues on to Oakland on San Francisco Bay. But we're going to change trains. We left the Zephyr at Salt Lake 2 days ago. Tonight, we are boarding the Desert Wind. It leaves at midnight, heading southwest en route to Las Vegas and LA. The following morning at dawn, we awaken to the harsh, bleak deserts of Utah's southwest. Once again, the scenery changes along the route. From New York to LA, we encounter virtually every landscape known to man. At Milford, Utah, we leave the train in the early morning hours, rent a car at the one rental agency in town, and set out to explore two of America's premier national parks. Our first stop will be the majestic Bryce Canyon, located in southwestern Utah and one of the most popular of our national parks. Set on a high plateau stretching out over the region, Bryce Canyon is really not a canyon at all, but rather a fissured, eroded face of the southern Utah Plateau. It was named for Ebenezer Bryce, an early pioneer who observed that it was a hell of a place to lose a cow. The elevation is 8,900 feet, one of the highest of our national parks. Hiking and horseback riding are popular, but you must take it easy. The altitude is tiring to almost all visitors who come to the park. The formations of pink and white limestone are amazing. Cathedrals of nature soaring into the sky. Silent chessmen patiently awaiting nature's next move. Nearby to Bryce Canyon, actually about 90 miles away, which in this part of the West is near, is Zion National Park, another of America's popular scenic attractions. Zion is a series of dramatic gorges and canyons. It is geologically a part of the Grand Canyon 125 miles away. The canyon dates from the period of time when dinosaurs roamed the West. At first a sea, then a desert, Zion's layered buttes and canyons are actually scars of incredibly harsh climatic conditions. As a result of millions of years of erosion are varied colors and hues that make Zion known as the land of rainbow canyons. From Zion, we return to Milford, Utah, turn in our car, and reboard the Desert Wind. We are rolling steadily out across the Utah desert and into Nevada, where the scenery becomes even more wild and the heat outside more inhuman. All Amtrak trains are air-conditioned, a necessity on these western desert runs. We're passing through an area known as Moapa. It is a vast region where there is not a single town with a population of more than a few hundred people. It is one of the bleakest and least populated places on Earth. From a place of few people, we are headed to a place of many people. We are arriving in Las Vegas, Nevada, one of the fastest growing cities in America and one of the biggest tourist towns of the world. From the hot Nevada flatlands, the Desert Wind rolls into Las Vegas. We'll be stopping at the Amtrak station in the Union Plaza Hotel. Treasure Island up the Strip attracts mobs of people by offering an hourly pageant of hysteria in front of the hotel. These hotels and casinos will do absolutely anything to get your attention. Treasure Island does this with a regularly scheduled battle between the pirates and the British on Buccaneer Bay. An 80-foot-long pirate ship is docked unloading a cache of ill-gotten goods. Every 90 minutes, the British frigate sails around Skull Point to confront the pirate ship. The battle ensues, and the whole pirate dock explodes. The pirates, appearing to be losing the battle, make one last-ditch effort. The cannon shot hits dead center and the British ship goes down. After all, this is Las Vegas, so naturally the pirates win. And in good naval tradition, the captain goes down with the ship every 90 minutes, 7 days a week. During the day, Las Vegas is hot and dusty, but at night, the city comes alive. No place in the world has more lights and neon signs. They line the strip for miles, lighting up the hotels and casinos of this city on the desert. Gambling has been legal in Nevada since 1931. And slowly, a quarter at a time, this neon empire grew. The neon signs of the strip are marvels of engineering. Long before computers made programming these signs easy, cumbersome mechanical relay systems were used to create the dazzling displays of dancing lights. While Treasure Island hopes to get you inside with its Buccaneer show, the mirage next door lures tens of thousands of people each night with their erupting volcano. Every 15 minutes after dark, the ground rumbles and the volcano erupts, spewing flames and smoke into the hot night air. Only in Las Vegas can you see such a display of spectacle by just walking down the street. The hotels are, of course, not offering these free shows without a reason. The goal is simple. They want to get you inside their casinos for as long as you are willing to stay. These casinos are dazzling, noisy rooms filled with the clattering sounds of thousands of slot machines. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to look around at these palaces of wealth and figure out who's coming out ahead. But people continue to gamble, convinced that tonight it will be their turn to beat the house. But the greatest attractions of Las Vegas are not the casinos, but rather the shows. And of all of the spectacles offered up and down the strip, Mystère, the Cirque du Soleil at Treasure Island, is the newest and many would say the best show in town. This visual extravaganza, a souffle of circus acts, performance art, and dazzling theatrical display, offers the most lavish show on the strip. It is a major departure from the big revues with sequins, showgirls, and stars. It is, for Las Vegas, a form of culture. It is Las Vegas's equivalent of a night at a comic opera. Begun in Montreal as a touring tent show, the Cirque du Soleil of Treasure Island is a permanent revue which plays twice a night to houses packed with people from around the world who delight in this extravagant display. The following morning, we returned to the train station, passing through the casino and dropping one last quarter in a slot. The Amtrak personnel are busy loading the bags. Even the conductor pitches in today. We're starting the final leg of our transcontinental journey as we head to LA. The desert wind speeds out of Las Vegas, climbing up and around Clark Mountain as we head toward the Mojave Desert and the city of Los Angeles. The landscape of the California high desert is flat, sandy, bleak, and blisteringly hot. We pass Joshua trees and yucca plants scattered out over the desert as we make our way west. You'll notice an entirely different type of locomotive on the Desert Wind. Amtrak uses the new Genesis locomotives on this run. The Genesis locomotive was designed as the new generation of diesel engines for the Amtrak fleet. They were designed to manufacture 4,000 horsepower, the most powerful passenger train locomotives ever built. They are capable of reaching speeds of 150 miles an hour. Eventually, Amtrak hopes that new tracks will allow these speeds on certain routes, including the Las Vegas-LA run. And then finally, 3 days out of New York, the skyline of the City of the Angels, Los Angeles, LA. Los Angeles is America's second largest city, with a population of 5 million people in Los Angeles proper and nearly 9 million in the metropolitan region. It is expected to soon surpass New York as the nation's largest city. The desert wind slows as it approaches Union Station in the heart of downtown. This is the end of the line, 3,312 miles from New York's Pennsylvania Station and the completion of our transcontinental trip. Passengers say goodbye to the staff and step off of the train into the balmy sunshine of America's West Coast. Friends and families meet, and anxious tourists set out to discover the town. Our visit to Los Angeles will begin here at Union Station, a combination of Spanish Mission and Art Deco styling. Los Angeles is a city with a personality all of its own. The balmy climate and casual lifestyle make it distinctive and different from any other American city. And of all of its features, nothing defines Los Angeles better than the freeways. LA is the ultimate car town. Yes, the freeways can be jammed, and an accident can slow traffic 20 miles away. But when the system functions the way it's supposed to, it is truly the greatest and the fastest roadway system in the world. And when the freeways get crowded, you simply get off and use the thousands of miles of surface streets that cover LA. We took the freeway to Hollywood, then Sunset Boulevard west. As we head to the land of power and money, palm trees and swimming pools, Beverly Hills, the 24-karat gold diamond ring of Los Angeles. Beverly Hills is the single wealthiest large community in America. The Spanish Mission City Hall stands on Santa Monica Boulevard in the heart of Beverly Hills. This is a world unto itself. The shops of Beverly Hills are expensive, the clientele wealthy, the cars luxurious, the homes palatial. This is about as far from poor as you can get. In the center of the shopping district stands Rodeo Drive. It is lined with stores that have world-famous names. Mercedes, BMWs, Rolls-Royces, and Maseratis cruise the street, and stylish people wander from store to store in a rarefied world, seemingly a million miles away from the rest of LA. But for most of the world, LA means Hollywood, Tinseltown, the land where movies are made. The back streets of Hollywood house the largest collection of sound stages on Earth. Other buildings house suppliers of film, camera equipment, processing laboratories, all of the support services that keep this the #1 industry of the region. Paramount Studios are located in Hollywood, but the rest of the studios are scattered around LA. Warner Brothers is located in Burbank, nearby to the huge studios of Universal with their large and busy backlot. Many of your favorite TV programs are filmed here in Burbank and at Universal City. Walt Disney Studios have built a huge new animation department. and their corporate offices in Burbank have been designed in a neoclassical style with none other than the seven dwarfs holding up the roof. All of the major television networks have primary bases of operations here. NBC is located in Burbank. ABC and CBS stand at opposite ends of Hollywood, several miles away. The main drag of Hollywood is Hollywood Boulevard, a long thoroughfare that passes in front of Hollywood's best-known site, the world-renowned Chinese Theater. Built by Sid Grauman in 1927, this 1,400-seat movie palace is one of the last of its kind still in regular use. It is best known for its courtyard filled with handprints and footprints of the stars. Sid Grauman started this fanciful tradition during the period when all of the star-studded premieres were held here at the Chinese. Today, visitors from around the world compare their shoe sizes with people like John Wayne and Sylvester Stallone, hoping a bit of the glamour might rub off. The tradition still continues. About once a year, a new set of handprints and footprints are installed. This workman is preparing the spot where Steven Seagal will leave his imprints the following day. Hollywood is filled with people from around the world who come here to see the sights and hoping to see a star along the way. For most, the stars they will see are on the street, in front of the Chinese Theater on Hollywood Boulevard. Stretching all the way to Vine is the Hollywood Walk of Fame. 2,300 bronze stars have been placed here since 1960 to honor those people who have contributed so much to the entertainment of the world. Los Angeles is a city of dreams. It stands on the far west coast of the United States, the Pacific Ocean at its shore. LA is a state of mind and a place where dreams can still come true. From Los Angeles, we return to New York. Union Station in the heart of downtown beckons us to relive our cross-country experiences on different trains and different routes as we return to the east. Travelers walk through the long, cavernous departure hall on their way to a track, a streamlined coach, and another cross-country train. From the west coast, we will return to Chicago on the Southwest Chief, following the route of the Santa Fe. And in Chicago, we'll board the Lakeshore Limited, bound for New York on the historic route of the New York Central's 20th century. American trains provide magical experiences. They allow you to ponder the vast expanse of one of the greatest nations of the world. They let you see the land close up. They give you an opportunity to think and chances to make new friends. America's great passenger trains continue to roll. They are not dying relics of another travel age, but popular alternatives to planes and cars, another way to cross the land. America's passenger trains let you live the American dream as you roll out over deserts, through mountains and plains, and see the nation in a way only train travelers will ever know. Each year, Amtrak carries 40 million people to 525 communities on 250 different regularly scheduled passenger trains over 24,000 miles of silver rails. The American cross-country passenger train is still very much alive, staffed by dedicated people, supported by rail enthusiasts, and ridden by adventuresome travelers who still believe that there is something wonderful and something magic about riding on a train.
See you on the next World's Greatest Train Ride Video Adventure.